It's the end of October, and Jews are asking themselves that perennial question, what to do about Halloween. We're going to get into that along with baseball and Jewish Netflix. I'm Avi Feingold, and along with Yedida Eisenstadt and Matthew Leibel, we are Not in Heaven. We are back, and before anybody can even say anything, Matthew, you are laughing hysterically.
We're back. We did one show. We're back, and let's go. Let's go.
Let's go. Yedida, how's it going with you?
Good. Excited about a second full week in a row. It's amazing, but it's about to get interrupted by all kinds of other stuff. But
it literally, yeah. So for me, it feels still like my first full week because last week I was traveling for this In Good Faith live podcast event that we did, which was very, very good.
Where was it? What was it?
It was at this thing, Art Space, right off Trinity Bellwoods Park in Toronto, in downtown Toronto.
Oh, I love that area.
We had 4 comedians, and we were talking about Jewish stuff, Muslim stuff, and we had a panel afterwards. We had a lot of fun. There were some great jokes. Noor, one of the great comedians that we had there that night, said something about how every time she feels completely useless, she remembers that the UN exists.
Whoa. That's
But did you just give the best joke from the whole evening?
No, far from the best joke.
Okay.
Far from the best joke, but that was
that's a teaser. If that's a true teaser, that's a solid joke.
And what's great was that one hits for everybody.
Exactly. That's where you have to find it in these kinds of events. They're tricky. A lot of comedians, I think, steer away from these kinds of things. They're usually on the radar.
Well, that is literally the stuff that we were trying to go for.
I've started listening, and I think it's really good. And also just as a listener, I can feel how hard it is to have that conversation. I'm appreciating it and I'm valuing it, and it's nice to it's good to hear the humanity, and I'm glad you're having the conversation. But I can also, when I've had those conversations, it's just really hard.
Yeah. Trying to bring up the things that you want to be respected for, and you're trying to bring the respect for the other person, but also at the same time, you don't want to make the other person feel awkward and feel bad. And so you're both playing this dance of I don't want to say the fullness of what I'm trying to say, and you don't always want to say the fullness of what you don't want to say, but that's kind of what a relationship is about. And so that's what we're trying to model, is to have these conversations. We will be releasing it as a live episode on this new podcast, In Good Faith, which is out, and you should go check it out.
So good luck.
Thank you. Keep it up. Thank you. What else on people's minds these days?
The World Series.
Oh, that is true. That is true.
Quite a game. Saying to me this.
Oh my goodness! Did you watch the whole game?
Give me one more week for the World Series, and then I can talk to you in November. I'm almost there. What about you, Avi? You had kind of a story that was a little close. I mean, changing gears, was a little close to home, and it was a little, I don't want to say scary, but it was a little unnerving at the least for
yeah.
For and
it's weird. Yeah, it was my kids' classmates were involved in an altercation. I would call it an altercation, but it's not really. It had nothing to do with them. They were playing basketball at a local park in Skokie, Illinois, which is one of the suburbs of Chicago. And a group of teens just came up to them and started saying, I don't remember the exact wording, but it was blaming them for the killing of babies and saying, we're going to take care of you guys. And one of them had a gel cap, a pellet gun, and started firing a couple times or something. And then other kids came, but then the cops came really quickly, defused the situation, and everybody seems to be okay pretty much.
How old
except for the people? The kids were probably younger, upper middle school, early high school, I believe. That was the age range of the kids on the Jewish side.
Bar mitzvah is what you're telling me.
Yeah, and then the other ones were a little bit older teens, probably 15, 16, 17. That's what I understand. But
and was this some kind of Jewish space where the guys wearing kippahs?
No, it's a public park. But kids were kippahs.
Kids wearing kippahs.
Yeah.
Skokie's a pretty Jewish suburb. Or
is it not?
Yeah, it's pretty Thornhillish, in terms of you walk around, you're seeing a lot of people
So in the end, you don't feel like your neighborhood is any less safe today, but people are just a little on edge kind of feeling?
Yeah, it was more like the kids' school because this happened in our kids' school and our kids' class, and with kids that she's very close friends with. But It was unnerving, and the only thing that I don't like is that it raises everybody's hackles, and like, oh, somebody's offering a Krav Maga class now to the teens to give them like tools to like have something, and I'm like, sure, yeah, but also like, no.
Very reactive stuff, but because people are nervous and afraid and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, I hope it calms down, and I hope that everyone stays safe, continues to be safe.
Yeah. Well, we will see. All right. I started watching last night. Nobody Wants This, season 2. Anybody here on that beat?
When the World Series is over, I can watch more of it. But we watched the first 2.
This
we
was
watched
a break.
the season fast. Yeah.
I will make efforts to catch up before we talk next week. So for people who have not watched the first season of Nobody Wants This, Matthew, I choose you,
Sure.
should tell us what the first season was about.
Okay, nobody wants this. Adam Brody, who was Seth Cohn 20 years ago on the OC, right? Like I remember he had a huge role on that show, the OC. He's like plays a rabbi, and he gets into an interfaith relationship with Kristen Bell's character. She's a big actress from Forgetting Sarah Marshall and a million other things, and she plays this atheist or agnostic or whatever podcaster, not Jewish, and they get together. It's kind of wild.
Right.
Like that's the whole first season. And I think because it's far enough, we're allowed to say that it kind of ends with him choosing her, even though she has not chosen Judaism, I would say is how I would leave the end of the first season. And it was great. I thought, I will tell you that not that like there's tons of references in pop culture to rabbis, but this to me is by far both, I feel like the most accurate for the times, but also the most complimentary. Like in my life, in my career, my life, my phone has blown up with 2 things. One, when I surprisingly left the synagogue I was at, which no one saw coming. And when Nobody Wants This came out, with the number of people texting me, have you seen this show? Do you watch this show? This guy really reminds us of you. Modern day rabbi, guy with a beard.
I was going to say the guy kind of, I mean, you're no Adam Brody, let's be honest, but
you
kind of got that thing. You kind of got that thing going with the slightly shaggy bearded rabbi sort of thing.
We have the same kind
Don't
of
worry.
look.
Brown
with
hair,
a niche
brown
group
eyes.
of rabbis.
Yedidi, you kind of have the sister-in-law look, so
He
don't worry
doesn't
about
clean up
that.
his neck beard, though, by the way. Look for it in season 2.
That
He
is
needs to
true.
clean up the neck beard.
That is true.
But yeah, but I'm telling you, people, I know that people are watching this. They're thinking of me. Like it's good press for something I didn't even do. And I just know that it's popular. And from having watched it, I love it. I think it's great.
I think also like Jews like to see themselves in pop culture. Like my kid's obsessed right now with K-pop Demon Hunters. Anybody else?
My
Who
kid's
isn't?
obsessed
Yeah,
with
yeah.
K-pop
Okay,
Demon
right.
Hunters,
Like
yes.
big birthday party on Sunday. She got like purple hair and a Rumi braid, and her
The
arms were
songs
painted.
are really good, by the way. The songs are incredible.
But I know a lot of Jewish people who are watching Nobody Wants This, but like, is the mainstream non-Jewish population watching Nobody Wants This?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you one way that you know for sure, in that in one episode, they paid for the licensing for a Taylor Swift song and something off Pink Pony Club. What's her name? Chapel Roan. And that's like big money that Netflix is throwing at it. And they would not be doing that if they weren't getting real numbers off of it. That was kind of my tip off that like, oh, they are getting real something. And so they're willing to spend money on
And
it.
Adam Brody and Kristen Bell are like mainstream legit stars. This like to
Yeah.
me, this is not like Stiesel, which was much more of a Jewish audience.
And
Like
was
that was
produced in
so
Israel.
niche. Like, and I have non-Jewish friends who are texting me too. Like, so I think that there is
Okay, great.
broad appeal, which is another one of the reasons why I like it. And I think it's so. I mean, I didn't go to a traditional rabbinical school, but a colleague of mine says this is happening all over the place in rabbinical schools of different. Where guys and gals are getting into relationships with non-Jewish people. It's too easy to meet. There's too many people. It's too easy to meet. Dating is happening and people are meeting. And look, and in Winnipeg too, I mean, even though there's a lot of Jews relative to the city, I mean, you guys know about my practice. Somewhere between a third and a half of the weddings I do, one's Jewish, one's not. So like this is the world, and they're going right at it. And I think they're very accurate too, like with his family, with her sister, with his brother. Like they're not cartoons.
Yeah,
right?
no,
Like,
it
they're not
feels like a real
caricatures. They're
depiction. They're-
relatable, real people.
It's also broadening the Jewish, like it's not as Jewy, right, in that sense. And they're like, like this, the shul scenes are sort of good, but they're like trying to flatten it a bit, and they're not like so insidery. Like I'm finding that there's moments that are really, really inside Jewish, and there are moments that are really not. Like this is not working.
Right. They have to pick like
but
their spot,
they're picking and
right?
choosing. Exactly. Yeah.
To make it feel authentic without being like you have to know the finer details to appreciate. It's the fine balance. Yeah.
Okay, let's come back to this after more of us and hopefully our listeners have caught up and watched, because we've been busy watching Slow Horses. But I will bump this to the top of the queue so that we can talk about it. Great.
Happy watching. It's good.
I'll live text you guys as it's
watching. Happening. Please. Yes.
Ever since October 7th, 2023, Muslim and Jewish communities in Canada have been torn apart.
I've known you for 20 years. You've been at my house for Shabbat supper, I don't know how many times. And for 1 second, you can't put down your friend and just hold my hand?
We're fed a constant stream of Jews and Muslims talking at each other, about each other, but rarely do we hear them talking to each other.
Why are you doing this? What's the benefit of doing this?
This podcast aims to do something different. I'm Avi Feingold, a rabbi and a writer with the Canadian Jewish News.
I'm Yafa Sakeja, a Canadian-Palestinian entrepreneur and volunteer with the Canadian Friends of Standing Together.
We're sitting down with Jews and Muslims, Israelis and Palestinians from coast to coast and across the political divide, having difficult conversations in good faith.
We are not the Israeli government. Palestinians are not Hamas.
This is the place where we're both supposed to end up, Israeli and Palestinian, Arab and Jewish.
Subscribe to In Good Faith, wherever you listen to podcasts. This week is in the world, inevitably every year comes up for discussion. Halloween. How do Jews deal with Halloween? What do we make of it? It's a dilemma because it's not a Jewish holiday, but is it totally secular? Is it not? How do you give out candy? Do you let your kids go trick-or-treating? Do you decorate the house? Do you not? Like, what's our flavor of that? So I guess the first question I want to ask is, how secular do we think Halloween actually is?
With the, like, if I want to say 100% secular.
And Yedita's going to say...
No. I'm going to disagree with that because I don't know that you can like erase a holiday's origins completely in its practice and celebration, even if it is totally Hallmarkized, right? Like Christmas is still Christmas, even though it's, been remade by the American commercial.
What do you mean though? Isn't it about isn't it more about the practice? Like if I told you that 90% of the people who celebrate Christmas celebrate it like it's a totally secular holiday where they give their presents to their family or friends and they have dinner. And
that's why I'm presenting it as an analog. I just don't think that Halloween.
Right. Well, but Halloween, I mean, like, no, who's a pagan? Like, who's celebrating Halloween? Who's a pagan? Like, worshiping, like, I was reading to my kid today the origins of it from like Celtic, history 2,000 years ago, like the end of the growing season, the beginning of the winter, the dead could cross over. That's where you get the zombies and all that. I mean,
doesn't that come through in the way that it's celebrated today?
Sure, of course, it informs all of it. I totally agree with you, but no one's celebrating. It's like, it's literally a candy holiday for kids.
So, Avi, why do you think that you are a little resistant to Halloween practices? Where does that come from?
I'm not a little resistant. I'm fully resistant to it.
Okay. Fully resistant. I'll be in the middle here.
I recognize its roots. I don't see it as a distinctly secular holiday that has values that I need to celebrate. I see it beyond what is just the candy piece. And I recognize that. And I'm like, we don't need to be part of that. If kids want to dress up, we have Purim. If kids want candy, we have what we call in our house Jewish Halloween, which is November 1st, because then you go to the grocery store and all the candy's 75% off, right? The same candy from the night before. And if you look at the types of things that are decorating the people's homes and the people's and the way in which people discuss this and talk about it, it's about ghoulish things. It's about the dead. It's about facing the things which we don't otherwise face during the year. And while many cultures have that, I don't think that Judaism really does or see it as a value to sort of say, oh, today's the day where we get to like talk about the things and face our fears and deal with the things that we shouldn't otherwise be talking about. That's not something that I think of as like something terribly Jewish. That's my whole thing.
I really feel like that's what's on most people's minds with Halloween. Like, I know it informs the decorations, but it's all so predominantly cartoonish, over the top, hyperbolic. There's no person out on the street getting candy, going door to door,
I'll flip
who's
the side.
thinking about this as being like a celebration of the dead coming back to the realm of
I
the
will
living.
flip the right thing right back at you and say how many people think Purim is about Jews' triumph over evil and a national holiday of a military victory. People don't think about that. People don't think about Hanukkah in that way. And yet everybody celebrates it and has kind of secularized Hanukkah and Purim, to give two examples.
I don't think it works, because I think, first of all, those are Jewish, so I can't speak to like how non-Jewish people, but it's part of the
not non-Jewish
celebration.
people. I'm talking about the average Jew.
But the story of those holidays that's baked in, like you light the candles, you say a blessing on the miracles, it invites the storytelling. Like when you're trick-or-treating with your kids, you're not going around. No one knows the stories to tell, to be like, there are Celtic roots to this. No one knows the origins. No one puts them in context. Kids are thinking about two things: cool costumes, lots of candy. It's community building. Like if you live in a neighborhood that, unless it's the shtetl, like if you live in a neighborhood with the world, Halloween is a holiday. Halloween is a holiday like Canada Day. Halloween is a North American holiday. There is nothing religious about Halloween in its actual practice, and its origins are important. I think the context is important, but there's nobody out on the streets, guys. Like my kids are obsessed with Halloween, and it is not something distinctly un-Jewish, or not, like they're not running around being like, we're raising the dead. They're 6 and 4. They just like the costumes and the decorations, and I always have a rule: no creepy blood. No, like I don't say yes to everything. I don't know. I've long been I'm not a good costume guy, but I've long felt that Halloween was way more a Canadian or North American holiday, that it's about community. It's about your neighborhood. It's about meeting the kids in your neighborhood.
Yedida, where are you up to on this?
Okay, so background. I grew up almost completely going to public school, and Halloween and Valentine's Day were definitely days when I felt like I had a very different practice and I was the weirdo. I grew up observant. We did not put out a pumpkin. We did have candy in the house to give out if trick-or-treaters came. Sometimes they did. Mostly they didn't. And that's sort of been how we've carried the practice through. When we lived in Nashville, after I got married and was living in Nashville, we lived adjacent to the neighborhood that had the reputation of being the most decorated and had the most stuff out. And I remember, I think I must have been taking the dog for a walk, or I was driving somewhere, and it was Halloween night, and like everybody was out and dressed up, and it was crazy, and it was dark, and it was terrifying. It was really scary. I was like, what is happening here? Everything is weird right now. And it was totally bizarre. So as a kid in public school, I definitely felt excluded, and like I wasn't partaking of the fun that everybody else was having. But like my parents talked to me about why, and sort of established like this is not a Jewish thing, and this boundary that we are putting up and maintaining is important to us. So on the one hand, I find compelling the argument that like this is a totally American, de-religionized, there's no religion here, except maybe there is a little bit, holiday where it's an opportunity for Jews to go out and just be like everybody else and bond with their neighbors, which I definitely think we as a people are in need of right now. At the same time, I think it celebrates stuff that I'm really uncomfortable with. I don't think it's been completely stripped of its historical nature. I think that there's lots of people who are still into that in one way or another. And I
like whether they know why or not they're into
no people that are actually pagan. That's what I think Yedida is
or are putting out sacrifices for the dead. Like there is some
Who's
of that.
Doing that? The guy across the street from me has decked out his house with lights, with sounds, motion sensors, creepy stuff, a skeleton owl in the tree. Like he's not worshiping ghouls, and he's not a pagan. Trust me.
So Matthew, I'm not saying that he is. One of
of course.
about being a modern practicing Jew is figuring out where the line is.
So-
and for me, there's like this line is a fuzzy line, but it's a line that like is sort of my norm. So
Okay, but
I'm
like,
maintaining it.
But Thanksgiving, right? Like Jews in America do
So
Thanksgiving.
I was really about to,
Right,
to
that's
flip
the-
that.
that's the
That's
flip.
there we go.
And
that's,
just before you do, I want to say,
Yeah.
you know how you mentioned Purim before? Correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I understand this, because I've always wondered, what do the costumes have anything to do with Purim, right? And there's always the hidden stories about, Esther hid herself, Esther means hidden, and all these sorts of things. But like, well, to what end? I heard that because of the time of year coming out of the winter and into the spring, this was like in Italy, the Carnival kind of time, which informed the celebration of Purim. So what was happening in the non-Jewish world where they were living, they actually made a part of the Jewish world for the rest of time. So I feel like we got to be open to Halloween.
Right. Okay. So first of all, Jews do this all the time. We
All
adopt
the
whatever's going on around us, but we filter it and we make it Jewish. That's not what's going on in this case. It's the other direction. And it's the other direction that traditional Jews have a harder time with, right? Like Jews going into the non-Jewish space when there's religious stuff that makes them uncomfortable is often where the line is. Adopting, like wearing costumes and bringing that into a Jewish tradition is not the same thing.
You don't see like your kids doing Halloween is kind of like wearing costumes and getting candy. I see it so similarly. No,
what I'm saying is that that's my kids going in the outward secularizing direction as opposed to
the other direction,
something that's secular and making it religious.
Okay. What were you going to say about Thanksgiving, Avi?
To me, that was just exactly the same like tipping point. That was the flip over, which by the way, what's interesting is that you don't realize like a lot of Canadians don't get how important Thanksgiving is to Americans and also how secular it is and how ritualized all of the food is and all of that, but it's incredibly secular. And you have so many rabbinic like voices saying that because it's secular and because it's doing something which is fundamentally of Jewish value based, right? It's not based on Judaism, but it has a similar valence as a lot of Jewish values, then yes, not only is it permitted, but you should celebrate like Thanksgiving. I remember my first Thanksgiving in America. I was living in Boston and my rabbi actually was visiting Boston because his daughter was living there, and they invited me for Thanksgiving dinner. And he treated it very seriously. He went around the table and asked everybody what they're thankful for that year. And we were like, it was meaningful. And because it's super secular and has Jewish adjacent values that are all being done, that makes sense. Whereas the flip side of it is if there are things in which you can ask yourself, what is the roots of something? If your kid asks you, what's Halloween about? You don't get to say just the candy, right? If they're asking you for a real answer, you do have to point to those things. And the same way in which I tell people on Shabbat, right? If you want to start doing Shabbat, I say, find something that you do and find something that you don't do, right? Because that's a big part of practice is finding the active things that we are part of as Jews. But then Shabbat specifically, find something that you refrain from on Shabbat so that you know that you're actually not doing something on Shabbos. And that is the same thing with the practice, the way that Yedid is saying, like, to me, there are things that I don't do in part of larger society that makes me Jewish. This is an example of one of them.
I actually think you can say to your kid, it's just about the fun and the candy. I just think I'm uncomfortable as a historian and a person who thinks about religion and religious relationships and boundaries. That like, I think that there's more there.
You guys have never done a Halloween though, right? Like you've never done a Halloween?
Yeah, I call it Purim.
No.
Instead of
on
collecting
October 31st,
food, I know,
all the non-Jewish people have never done a Halloween.
May have gotten, I don't know if it was for a Halloween party, but I have a Star Trek costume from, obviously, of course, from graduate school that like may have been for a Halloween party. I think like other than that, like I think
the two of you need like
to have more fun.
The most amazing and authentic trick-or-treating experience. You need to follow kids around your neighborhood, see all the other parents. What you need to do it. It's a rite of passage. You're missing out.
You maybe need to be part of a Haredi Purim and see how like insane and off the hook. And like, that's more than enough. Like
my kids got obsessed with Halloween without any influence. Like I didn't grow up with it particularly crazy. There's a funny story. The one year the Leibel family tried to carve one pumpkin and how it went just horribly, horribly wrong. And if you've ever carved a pumpkin, you know, it's not hard at all. But I mean, the costumes, the friends, and I went to a Jewish school, And all the kids I grew up with, we all went Halloween. People would drive to other people's neighborhoods. You would meet up. I only really ever associated with those sorts of things. And I was like easily scared. So I would not go near anything that was scary, skipped any house that had music, anything terrifying. And my kids are exactly the same way. They I don't know what it is. I mean, I'm sure the candy's a big part of it, but the decorations really hook them. Our boys are constantly decorating inside, outside, influenced by the house across the street, all this stuff. I don't know. I remember being in Halifax and the rabbi giving a sermon. I'm like 22, 23, leading up to Halloween about whether or not families should hand out candy and be part of it. And he was overwhelmingly pro because of the things we mentioned about, like, you don't live in an only Jewish world and you want to blend with your neighbors. And I'm not talking about sending your kids out, but I'm talking about the part about handing out candy.
I give out. So I actively will give out candy because I don't think that's the right thing to do, is to turn off your lights and to say, oh, we're such Halloween Grinches that we don't do anything like that.
You're into it to a certain level.
I only
toe
do
in
that
the water.
if I forgot to buy candy. I really do try to remember, but
to
I'm
me,
gonna put it on my shopping list right now.
A couple of years ago, the personal care home where I work, Simpkin Center, there was a big thing because for the longest time, Halloween was never recognized, ever. But there was a big conversation, and I mean, we have a mixed population, right? Like, we have a nearly 50% non-Jewish population, so we have to make an understanding. And we came to the conclusion to celebrate Halloween, and we're having a whole Spirit Week there as well. And it's just, in practice, it's just so very well received. Like, I guess I don't go around waiting for Halloween, and I can never find a good costume for Purim or for Halloween. In fact, I kind of hate dressing up. I usually just wear a hat. But I see the joy, and I see the closeness around the people, and I just see positive. Every year on October 31st, this will be the third year, I do a program, Jewish Ghost Stories. Because, like, a lot of people don't know, for example, the Witch of Endor story.
Sure.
That is such a great Jewish ghost story right out of the Tanakh. And they don't know about, like, the Dybbuk, one of the greatest stories in Yiddish literature about,
do you do Ashmedai, King of the Demons?
No, you got to turn me on to this one. Who's that?
I will send it to you.
Shlomo needs to, like, build the temple, and he's told that the only thing, he can't use any metal on the stones, and he's told that there's this worm that can cut through stone just by being on it, but it's guarded by Ashmedai, King of the Demons, and so he has to go, like, search for Ashmedai and capture him and bring him back. It's like a whole, like, it's a saga and a half.
That sounds great.
It's very long.
Check it out.
I got to add that into the portfolio.
That's a
yeah, but look,
story.
you know what? Jewish Ghost Stories is marginally better, at least, than when I was in college and the, like, Jewish student clubs would sometimes put on Purim in October. And I'm like, why? Like, just
terrible.
You're so bad. It's like,
terrible.
It's so transparently wrong. But yeah, anyways.
Plus, like, if you go away to university, Halloween is it is such a social event. That's the other thing that you don't, like, when you're a kid, like, you guys never did this. So when you're a kid, you top out at bar mitzvah age, right? Like, you can't be going out trick-or-treating basically beyond 12. There's a whole Curb Your Enthusiasm episode where he refuses to give them candy on Halloween, and they, like, egg and toilet paper his house, and it's like a whole thing, right? Yeah. But then you're a teenager and you don't do Halloween. But when you get to university, particularly if you go away, it's one of the social highlights of the annual calendar. The Halloween parties, the chance to hooking up kind of like, there's so many. It's so incredibly popular. So,
and Matthew, look who you're talking to.
I know. I feel like I'm trying to convert the wrong two people to Halloween.
So I'm realizing, based on the college and adult drinking, Halloween is a drinking holiday, I've come up with my costume for Matthew Leibel for this year, based on the fact that a lot of people in the religious community, you see this with a lot of kids. They dress up as a Kohen Gadol, as, like, the high priest with all of the various garments. I think, Matthew, my challenge to you is that you should go this year for Purim as sexy Kohen Gadol.
I just want to be very clear that I do understand your perspective, and I like the way you phrase it and where you've come from. And I've obviously heard this description before. I just I like Halloween, and I'm a big proponent, but I think that we had a good conversation about it. So
can I just share, like, in thinking about the topic for this week, there's, like, a piece of Gemara that, like, I kept coming back to in my brain, also because I've been working on it recently. There's a Mishnah in Avodah Zarah, the tractate that deals with, like, relations with non-Jews and idol worship and stuff like that, where a guy comes to Rabbi somebody and says, why are you allowed to go take a bath in the Roman bathhouse that has this like statue idol of Aphrodite in it?
Ooh.
Right. So it sort of feels like an analog to Halloween to me. Like, you're going out, you're taking advantage of this thing, and like there's this big statue of a Greek goddess in the bathhouse, and he won't answer him in the bathhouse. he's not going to give over his Torah, his halachic explanation in the bathhouse. But later on, when they're outside of the bathhouse, he explains that it's a bathhouse and Aphrodite is put in the bathhouse, but like in the first case, it's a bathhouse, and then they put Aphrodite in there mainly for decoration. And he also kind of challenges the notion that she's an idol in the bathhouse, because like you do disgusting things in the bathhouse, right? Like you're naked, you might pee, right? Like there's all this stuff that you wouldn't do if you respected and worshipped this god in that space. So the Mishnah seems to be making a distinction between the ways that you worship, which on the one hand, you could argue is like, okay, Halloween in modernity in 2025, I'm not worshiping any goddesses. But you also could say like, this is a time where on this day or this night, people, you know, used to or do think about the spirits coming out. And it is this night that's imbued with all this freaky ghoulishness, and that it's, you know, better for Jews to stay in, not partake of this out in the public space. Anyway, that Mishnah has just like been sort of punctuating my thought about Halloween for the last few days. So I give it to you as food for thought.
You had a piece of Mishnah or Gemara in the brain, and I've got a piece of O. Henry stuck between my teeth from all of the...
From that piece of text, it's I think it'd be a great place to transition to our textual healing for the week.
Textual healing. It's time for some textual healing. Let's get biblical. Tell me a parsha, and we'll make it physical. Textual healing. It's time for some textual healing.
Matthew, do you want to get us going?
Yes. So this is Lech Lecha, right? We're into Lech Lecha. Avram, and then by the end, he's Avraham. What I was thinking about for this week was that we meet Avraham. Well, I'll just call him Avraham. I always forget that we don't meet him young in the Torah. You know, there's so much midrash and everything about what he was like growing up to fill in the blanks of the fact that the Torah doesn't introduce him until he's 75. But we're numb to the number because we know the numbers for ages in the Torah are very, like he's not 75 the way you're 75 today. So it doesn't, the number just kind of washes over me, I think, and a lot of other people. But I was thinking about it in this context. If he lived to be 175 and he lived to be old, right? Avraham Zaken Baba Yamim, then in modern terms, it feels like he'd be into his 90s. Like he had a good long life. Avraham died, he was into his 90s, right? That means that if you do the math, when we meet him and he has his Lech Lecha moment, he's like 40. And
instead of dog years, you're counting in Avraham years?
I'm counting in like trying to relate to him as a person, right? Because the moment this week where he gets the call and everything starts, this is not a call that came to him when he was a young, impressionable boy. Like it was not a bar mitzvah call. It was not even the call of young manhood, but it also wasn't the call of a guy with a family and kids and shifting his perspective because he didn't have those things. Like Avraham is the first ever person who had to kind of do soul searching and remake himself in the middle of his life, like a second act kind of thing. And I think that makes him, he's already super relatable because he's Avraham. But I think that when you put it in that way, at least for me thinking about it this week, that if Avraham is 40 when we meet him, and this is when he leaves and he's kind of worked and he's made a little bit of something, but he's not satisfied. He doesn't have the family, doesn't have the heirs, and he's looking for something. And what does he do? The whole idea of Lech Lecha is that he goes for himself, he goes to himself, he bets on himself. It's a very, very empowering story. And I think that these days, especially for millennials, like kind of, well, all of us, sort of, right? Like maybe obviously like technically Gen X or whatever.
I'm squarely Gen X.
Remaking yourself when you're 40 is the new norm. And it's terrifying. And to have a role model to look up to who's also kind of, the beginning of Judaism. It never really clued on me, and I just kind of dawned on me. So Avraham, way to go. Way to remake your life, man. Nice job.
Matthew, do you think that your reading of like Abraham's ages and stages of life, like, do you think you have special insight because you work with an elderly population in your day job?
I don't know. I mean, maybe, but I was just kind of thought like, okay, he's not 75 the way I think of 75. How old would he really have been when this whole story started? And yeah, it's, wait a second, if he was 40, I'm 40, right? So I kind of, maybe it's a whole mishmash of all of that stuff.
Well, my birthday is on Sunday, and I'm going to be 42 years young.
Oh,
so I'm going to go.
Stream.
Matthew was kind enough to make me a recording. I am going to read Torah for the first time at the 30th anniversary of my bat mitzvah in a few weeks.
I think that's so great. So exciting.
All right.
That's
well,
amazing.
I do have a lot of practicing to do. A quick little nugget. Because of where the Parsha ends this week and picks up next week, this is actually a very long Parsha this week, and it's jam-packed with action, so it's hard to pick something for today. But I just want to point this out. I think that people are not paying attention by the time they get to the end of this Parsha. And it like, we always learn from the time that we're really young that Sarah laughed in disbelief, and so she's punished a little bit, and that's why their son is named Yitzchak, because she laughed, and also because the text says it. But we forget that we don't notice that at the end of Genesis 17, Abraham also laughs. And Sarah gets a bad rap. They both laughed. The text says that they both laughed. Rashi here works very hard to explain that Abraham's laughter was laughter of like joy and faith. So Abraham doesn't get in trouble, but Sarah's laughter was like laughter of disbelief. And that's why she gets in a little bit of trouble. So anyway, I think that that's just because we're sort of tuned out at the end. But I just want to highlight that Abraham laughs also, and it's the same laughter. The end.
Such a good Parsha. It's such a good Parsha. And these are the stories, right? Like the early stories. Every year as a Torah reader, when we would loop around, like Dvarim as a Torah reader, it's a tough Torah reading because there's no narrative, right? But when you get through that and you get on the other side of Simchat Torah and you're right back into Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, Tower of Babel, Noah's Ark, Avraham, Akedah, Yaakov. It's just like,
you sound like Billy Joel right now, or Schlock Rock.
But like you realize we have a lot of laws, and the laws can bog people down, right? It's tough to get into for a lot, but the stories, oh my God, the richness of the stories. Like this is the story that literally people are fighting about today. This promise, this covenant, this deal with Abraham that involves land and people. It's everything. And the stories are so rich and they're so great. And yeah, we're in it. So if you're the textual healing is just going to it's off the charts.
I'm going to go right at the beginning, and it's one of my favorite pieces of Torah, taught to me by a good friend of mine who was also a huge baseball fan. And this is the Parsha in which the main lesson of this week's portion is the same lesson as we learn in baseball. And it's perfect for World Series week. It always comes out around now. It's the end of the year. It's the playoffs or the World Series.
Let's hear this.
And that is that the message of Lech Lecha, like, is the same message as a batter who is facing like a pitcher. You are already at home plate, which is where you want to be to score a run. But you can't score a run just by stepping on home plate if you're batting. You have to go around all the bases, right? And so it is about going, the journey is the destination, and that is the message of Lech Lecha. You have to leave home in order to get home. And that's what Avraham does. Avraham leaves his home. It's in a nutshell, you have to leave home to get home. Thank you for listening to Not in Heaven this week. Our producer and editor is Zachary Kaufman. Michael Freeman is the executive producer. To catch every episode, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support our show, consider making a donation to the CJN at thecjn.ca/donate.